Hey everyone, welcome to Secure AF, the podcast about all things cybersecurity. I'm your host, Teddy Underkoffler. Today I am joined with co-host Donovan Farrow.
Welcome back to the championship.
As well as our special guest, Todd Wedel.
Hi, Teddy. Good to be here.
Perfect. Todd, before we kind of get into the subject, which I know we are going to talk about social engineering and kind of the culture and honor, but before we get into that, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I get to serve here as a technical writer for Alias, so I write reports. But the other thing that I've gotten into is especially doing some of our social engineering, our phishing, helping to figure out how do we hack the human, and either that can be electronically or going with the guys on some of the physical engagements to try to actually break into places.
Awesome. So the topic of the episode today is social engineering with the culture of honor. Can you tell me a little bit about what that even is to begin with?
Sure. So the culture of honor, the way that works in the United States is actually immigration from Scotland. So if you think about some of the areas of Scotland where there wasn't law, there wasn't land, all you had was your sheep or your goats or whatever. So the only thing you had really to defend was your reputation and your manhood. And so the way that people knew not to mess with you is if you were known as a guy to not mess with. As those immigrants came into the United States and they spread through the South and West, they brought that culture with them. And so the culture of honor is very particularly based around reputation and a reputation for strength, and the way that you then defend that reputation, and the way that that then dictates the way that you interact with others in society.
Okay. And you touched a little bit on it, but social engineering can be, physical, face-to-face. It can be phishing. It can be vishing. So how do those two go together?
So the culture of honor mainly works out in physical engagements where, or vishing as well a little bit because it's sort of interpersonal, but especially physical where you're directly interacting with someone else. You're trying to get past them. You're trying to essentially put one over on them. And so all of those are ways that could be an affront to reputation, either a direct affront in the sense of if I'm coming in kind of aggressively trying to get to the bank, well, it's your reputation if you don't stop me. Or if I'm trying to put one over on you, well, that's a reputation. I don't want to be known as a guy that can be taken advantage of. So again, that might be something where, hey, you're coming after my reputation, so I need to do something to prove that you don't pull that kind of stuff with me.
Mm-hmm. So what do you do? I mean, how do you prove that?
So what's really interesting in culture of honor is it's all about violence and violence avoidance. And so in a culture of honor, the primary way that I prove my manhood is potentially by a violent act. Mm-hmm. So if you come after my reputation, the way that I sort of prove that you shouldn't do that is I might get physical with you. Now, the flip side of that is you don't want to have a culture where everybody's wandering around beating each other up. So there are also structures in place so that we can try to mitigate that and keep that from escalating. And one of the ways that works in the South is politeness. So if we stay polite, then we're not going to escalate into violence. If we start to break those codes of politeness, now we're in a potentially dangerous situation. And so a lot of the tense interactions, especially between men, are how do we navigate this in a way to not escalate? Because in a culture of honor, it's also not enough that a responding kind, I need to one-up you. So if you threaten my reputation by, say, trying to get past me, well, I might need to prove that you can't do that by getting a little bit physical. You get physical with me, well, I better go one up on you. And so a lot of the interactions are how do we navigate that without having it escalate? Because once it escalates, because we have to one up each other, eventually something really bad is going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, if it's founded on violence, then
yes.
That makes sense.
I thought people were I didn't know it was polite. I thought you were going to say because everyone carries a gun, but that's fine. But, it's choosing violence or politeness, right?
Right. So you better stay nice to me because otherwise we can throw down.
Nice.
That's great.
So then you mentioned a bit you start out with that politeness, mm-hmm. and then that's kind of how you kind of show that before that escalation. So what does that politeness look like then?
So I think one of my favorite examples is one of our engineers talked about how he was going into a bank, and the flag, what he was supposed to do is actually get thrown out of the bank. Like his goal, what they wanted is they wanted to test their security to see, will they actually physically throw someone out of the lobby? So he goes in, and instead of being aggressive, like, hey, I'm going to come in here, he stays very, very polite, and he just goes around and starts plugging a USB drive into open ports. Now, eventually, this catches the attention of the IT guy, and he comes over and says, you got to stop that. He says, you're right, I should, and just keeps doing it. Eventually, the security guard comes over and says, you have got to stop that. And he just looks very politely at the guy and says, you're right, like, if this were my bank, I wouldn't let anybody do this. And just... So, two things are going on. One, he is not escalating, which means the security guard would have to be the first one, like, to be the physical. That never looks good, right? You think about the phrase, never start a fight, always finish one, right? The other thing is this engineer was not particularly big. So again, think of the phrase, always pick on someone
your own size.
So the security guard is in a situation, I've got someone who's being very polite, who's smaller than me. So everybody in this lobby is going to see me suddenly grab this small guy and throw him out of the bank. My reputation doesn't look good because I just look like a bully at that point.
Right. And how would you explain that to your employer, I would think, you know?
Right. I just, because everybody looks around and they're like, I don't know, the guy wasn't doing anything. And all of a sudden, like, this guy just threw him out of the bank. That doesn't look good. No matter what he was doing, it just doesn't, right? It doesn't look good. So it's a reputation issue. Oh, what a tough guy. You picked him up and threw him out of the bank.
That is quite complicated. I can't even imagine. Be like, no, you're right. This, I shouldn't be doing this. And, if mine's bank, I want to have those policies too. Thank you. And they're just like,
and then you just keep doing
what? So leave. Yeah, I think we should do that soon. I'm almost finished. I'll be out of your hair in just one moment. And they're just like, what are you talking about? I wish I could hear. I would love to see that guy's, like, how he approached, what his mindset was on that engagement. I'd like to pick his brain. That was a good one.
Yeah, I don't know what I would do in that kind of a situation. Like, I think I would just be like, this is so out of the ordinary. Like, it's not exactly a situation that if I was a security guard, would expect someone just to politely be like, yeah, no, you're so right. You're so right. Just give me 5 more minutes.
It's just the money I'm putting in the bag. I'm just trying to get out of your hair. I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't be doing this. Calm and slow, and it doesn't escalate the situation. I think that, kind of having to that, I gave a speech at the University of Dallas last night, and I'll probably tell the story the same way here, but I really wanted to get them so engaged. And then I was like really talking really fast and getting them all. And I was like, and then guess what? I was like, did you guys feel that? And they were like, I was like, did you guys feel that anxiety? They're like, that's where I want you to be. Because for social engineering, and again, adding a piece to it is, it's the emotional change and making stuff weird for people is the best way to make them do stuff they're not supposed to do. And just like that situation, being kind and polite is very strange for someone clearly doing something probably illegal. It just the mindset is the trick, and I don't think anyone really talks about that. So I'll let you carry on. But that was I like how you already started approaching it. It's a different view that everyone talks about the physical stuff, but they don't talk about the actual mentalness, how you change people's brains in a situation, and how you can kind of get them to go along with it, or they just stand and watch you.
Yeah, I think. And that's part of just thinking about even, politeness is so powerful. I went on an engagement and I took a camera into the lobby of a bank and I just started taking pictures. Well, one, if you have a camera and you're taking pictures, everybody assumes you're supposed to be there. And two, when they approach you, you just stay very polite. Oh, I'm with so-and-so. I'm just here taking pictures. We're doing a review of the interior of your bank. Okay, I'm not being aggressive. If they, ask what I'm doing, I just keep it very low key. And so in that way, there's not that threat of escalation. But also it depends upon, how big of a guy are you in this case, right? So we have some other engineers who are physically larger. They can be more aggressive because the potential for violence is greater and they just have a bigger physical presence. So the potential cost of getting it wrong. So if you think about that security guard, if he got it wrong with this one engineer, his reputation's in threat, but physically he's not. Okay, you go after somebody who's bigger than you are. Well, one, your reputation might be good because, like, I took that guy down.
Right.
But what if you don't?
Right.
Like, what if you fail?
Risk analysis. I like it.
Yeah.
And so that can play a big role in just how they interact. And then if you're on the other side, just being aware of how that impacts you. So, for that security guard, if he knows politeness is this way that we kind of avoid things, and I'm thinking more about my reputation than I am about my job, that can help to sort of reframe that situation of, it doesn't really matter what this guy's doing. He's got to stop that. He can't do that. But that's really hard in that situation because it's what you feel. I feel this danger. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And I would think if you're in like an uncomfortable situation, you're a security guard, someone's being super polite who's in your space, what do? Right? Like you're like, this wasn't in my training. I'm not sure what to do. I know how to handle like aggressive situations, but I don't know how to handle someone who's just being super peaceful and almost fairly compliant with it, but just still needs to be out.
but being super compliant.
Yeah.
There wasn't a class on how to deal with super polite people in the workspace that are probably committing crime, I think. It's a good concept.
Yeah. How do you escalate that? You call your boss. You're like, I have a really polite person here in the lobby. It makes sense. And it kind of makes me think of, the social engineering of politeness. How many times have I held the door open for somebody and I'm like, no, come on in. Or, vice versa. Folks have held the door open for me and they're just like, yeah, no, come on, hurry up. They were just being polite, but.
Yeah, and I think one thing, an example of that too, is in that same engagement, I was in a slightly different situation, same goal, get some pictures. And it was honestly my first day ever doing a social engagement. So I was kind of nervous. But what the other guy said is they said, play up on that. Because we also have this cultural value of helping people who are nervous or who seem like they don't know what to do, right? Because again, think about your reputation. This guy's really nervous. I'm going to throw him out. This guy's really nervous. I'm not going to help him. So it's like, oh man, this is my first day on the job. I think I went to the wrong location. I don't know what, I'm sorry. My boss is going to be really mad at me. And so in that case, I was actually interacting with two women and they just went over the top to, okay, we totally get it. Can I get you a water? I'm not where I'm supposed to be. I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. But just that sense of, because there's also this sense of, I want to protect your reputation. So not only do I want to protect mine, but I don't really want to cause offense to you. And I want to try to protect your reputation too. Partly that's the politeness, and partly, again, that can be the conflict avoidance of, man, if your reputation, you already seem keyed up. If I further cause discomfort, now you might do something to try to protect your reputation. So let's all play nice. Let's make sure everything sort of stays cool here.
Mm-hmm. And it is the best. I like to add in I always call it the sweaty palm syndrome, by the way. If he isn't aware of that, I just keyed that up. # sweaty palms. Guaranteed. You go on the site, especially your first time, and it doesn't really like dial down for the nervousness part, but I'd like, kind of lean into that. And by the way, if you ask someone for a glass of water, like 95% of the time, they'll go get you a glass of water. And then you can see what their monitors, you can take a picture of their CCTV cameras, but especially if you come in hot or even come in sweaty, which we've we had one in the summertime. We made sure that we ran outside and got really sweaty and said, hey, it was for a financial institution. I got this loan coming up. Man, oh my gosh, it was so hot. You got some water? And they were like, yes, we have some bottled water in the back. And I was like, no, I like faucet water. And there's like, I was like, do you guys have a kitchen? They're like, yeah, I guess it's over here, which they allowed me to go behind the barrier because I'm sitting there I'm sweating my heart. But it was all by design. And they didn't really want to touch anything around me, if that makes sense. So it worked. It worked pretty well.
And so they actually let you back into the kitchen.
They did, because I was a big sweaty guy and needed a faucet water. It was good. It was good. Sweaty palms. You just got to take advantage of it sometimes.
No, that's fantastic. So it's interesting to think that politeness can have such a big impact on just influencing and social engineering. What are some other ways that the culture of honor can kind of directly impact that?
I think one of the big ways is being aware. So if you're the social engineer, being aware of what's happening on the other side, that you know how to use that, but you're also very aware of how the other person is perceiving that. And we had an engagement where I was the second person. one person had managed to get in the facility the night before. And so they're already like, hey, we've sort of gotten them. I don't get in the building, but I get really, really close. And so their IT director, who was really upset about the night before because, hey, you got past our guys, catches me and is walking me out. And on my way out, which it was maybe a 2-minute walk, he referenced at least 2 or 3 times that he could have called the cops, right? So sort of let me know, I could have gotten you. And then probably referenced 3 or 4 times as well that they had armed security guards. And he made sure to emphasize armed to let me know that, yeah, I got him, or we got him, or whatever, right? We'd affronted his reputation. Just so you know, this could have gotten violent, and I would have won. And so, one, knowing that that's his response, but also knowing that's a part of this dynamic is knowing how far in you can push, but also watching for that warning sign of when is the other person going to decide it's time to take it to the next step and backing off, or making sure that they're, hey, actually, I'm here because you paid us to be here. Your boss paid us.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. I would say out of all of them, I think that might have been the only time, well, except for someone get pulled over by the police, but that's been probably the only time we've ever been threatened like that. And again, we as I'm taking to the crowd here, we only do stuff we get paid for the record. We don't just randomly drop in for lulz just to have a good time and see if we can social engineer somebody. That's not my jam. We got bills to pay. So it is strange. It's a good point to kind of level that out. And I'd like to know, because it's kind of news to me. I don't get all the stories. So you guys was he notified that we were in the day before, or how did he get tipped off?
So he was the IT director. We'd gotten in the night before, and so he hadn't been there, but his direct report had been there, had actually finally figured out where our engineer was, because our engineer kind of went, I think, in and off cameras, and like they were kind of trying to figure out where he was, and they finally found him. And we're like, in that case, I'm just going to keep doing this didn't work. It was, okay, you're going to stop. So he gets escorted out. So they were already sort of aware, and I think this guy was thinking they might try to hit us again. So he was a little bit keyed up.
Right.
But that meant that when he caught me, he's in his mind, he's already like, you got us once before and you just about got us, because I was 3 feet from getting in the building. And so he wanted to make really sure that I knew that was not acceptable and that it could have gone bad.
And for the record, we had a contract to do this. Just throwing it out there for the 5th time. I love these. The only thing is I'm super disappointed. No one ever lets us steal a car, which I'm super sad about. Was this the same? Was that? There's another one, maybe the same places. We got to the garage door and there was a box full of keys for all the trucks, or was that a different place? Sorry. That was when we had to get through the garage, went underneath the fence and just walked in the garage and took a picture inside of the truck. And he was like, yeah, don't take the truck. I don't know if it was that one. That was pretty good too.
I know on that one of our guys did get under the fence, did get in the garage, and there was a box of keys. I don't know if that's the one where he took a picture inside of the truck, but it was the same thing, right?
Yeah.
He got in, he wandered the place. We have, pictures of all the places he went. So again, it's not just that this was reputation. We now have we have picture evidence of where we got and how bad it was. And so again, that's like one more layer of, yeah, my reputation feels like it's on the line. Even though they hired us, even though this is what we were supposed to do, even though this is for your good, like, hey, we just showed you how we can get in.
Yeah.
That's still really hard to take.
Yeah. And yeah, to that, everyone always asks this question, and no one gets fired. That's not what this is about. It's like us doing a pen test and the IT guy getting fired. That doesn't make any sense. It's testing security things that are already in place to ensure that it's working correctly, and if there is any deficiencies, it just keeps it sharper. So it's actually, people look at it as like, we're going to get you. And I think some IT people kind of come off that way, and it makes them nervous for their job. But it actually makes their job more visible to upper management, and actually their budget grows because they need more help. And that's usually what ends up from those engagements.
Well, that was what was really great about this guy, is even though he had that response, he also then said, hey, can you point some of these things out that we hadn't seen? Because he really saw this as, hey, this is a chance to improve. So even though he had that immediate sort of gut reaction, he was able to come back around and say, hey, you didn't notice this, but please note this in the report because this also is a vulnerability. I really want to see us improve. I want to see us get better. And so that was encouraging to hear.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, someone coming in just snuck in your house for a while and ate your cake in the fridge. Not all of it, just a piece. That way, it's not super suspicious. That's interesting.
Yeah, no, that is neat. I mean, because fundamentally, it's about helping make sure that people are more secure, but it's fascinating to think about, like, what I would have done if I knew somebody was in our office just hanging out, evading cameras. It definitely would be spooky for a second. But yeah, no, it's cool. It's the politeness and then the consideration of just, like, knowing when to stop. One thing I do want to ask about, though, and I've always kind of heard stories from when I went to DEF CON, especially like social engineering, the village. Women, can't they, they have a certain aspect. You've talked a lot about like men, social engineering men, but when you bring kind of women into the case, I assume security guards are probably going to be considerably less violent or less aggressive towards women than they would a man.
Right, because that's part of the script, right? So you think culture of honor, think about chivalry. The code of chivalry serves sort of the same purpose, right, of protecting reputation, but also protecting weak, protecting women. And so that works on both sides, that the script, and again, this is just generally true. Of course, there are exceptions. But generally, if I go into the bank and the first person I encounter is a woman, that dynamic is different because the script might be to be more deferential, right, on her part. And there's also the potential of, right, there's always that risk of escalation, right? So probably more deferential, probably a little bit more nervous than maybe a guy would be. Again, not universally, but possibly. But yeah, then on the other side, if you're trying to get in, okay, think about that poor security guard. Imagine that it had been a woman calmly plugging something into a port over and over and over again. Really, you're going to look like a man throwing a woman out of the bank? That's going to look really good on you. And so that again is one of those dynamics of probably going to be more deferential towards the woman, probably going to be more willing to help, probably going to be less suspicious of you trying to put one over on me. Whereas I might be more reactive to a guy if I'm the security guard of, no, you really shouldn't be here. Oh, well, I really want to help you because let's say you look nervous. Okay, she's coming in, she's looking nervous. I don't think he's probably going to put one over on me. It's not a physical threat, so I'm probably going to be in a much different place interacting with you.
Yeah, helpful. That makes sense. Mm-hmm. It just always say it's like holding a door for somebody.
Yeah, absolutely.
A cast works phenomenal, by the way. Just an arm thing. Everyone wants to help. So yeah, so the ladies they win. They win almost all the time. I don't think of a time we've ever been stopped on that one. Yeah, ace in the hole, absolutely. Because that's that helpful thing, and I'll go back to kind of what Todd was saying is that I can't even imagine like if the ladies come to be a social engineer and the man is yelling, right, and it goes back to their what you call it, like they're who they are, right? Who they are. Mm-hmm. They would be losing some of that respect because they were being disrespectful to a lady. I can see that. Yeah, that makes sense. I never thought about it from that perspective, but yeah, it totally, because everyone's watching you, and your reputation is who you are, and if you don't, I'll use your term, run with the script, it's going to look bad on you because you can't do violence, because that would be really weird. You're probably going to jail for sure. But secondly, if you treat a lady like that, especially in public, like that makes more sense. Huh. Nice.
I was talking to someone and they told me a story that I found really interesting, which was I can't remember if they knew someone or they'd heard this story from someone that they knew, a woman who got into social engineering, and what she'd do is she ordered one of those like pregnancy bellies, and then would put all of her tools inside. Because
genius.
Nobody's gonna, like, one, think about the level of respect. Like, I'm definitely holding the door open for that person.
Yeah.
If they say they need to go to the bathroom, please go. Right? I'm not gonna watch. I'm not gonna like track.
Yeah.
And then she'd get in and have all of her tools and go to the server room and open it up. And, I mean, how we're just gonna search her. So
Right.
that seemed pretty brilliant to me.
Wow.
Mm. Mm-mm.
Well, and like I imagine if you even just had a stroller with you, right? Like you mentioned the door opening. I mean, if every time I've seen someone with a stroller, I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Let me hold this door for you.
Yeah, I think you're just giving me a good idea. I'm thinking of a baby carrier. It's over.
Yeah.
Like, please hold the door, please. And then you put, no, it's not a baby, but you put your baby in the door, so make sure it doesn't shut on the baby, and everyone's going to just let you in.
No.
Like, who you're here to see? He's here to see his mother. Oh, okay. I'm dropping him off. Or you could just leave it in the middle of the hallway, and then just go pick a lock down.
Oh man.
Sorry, these are not for sale real ideas. These are just ideas. Use them at your own risk.
Yeah, right.
That'd be funny though. My goodness.
That would be interesting because I've heard stories from some of the team where it's like, they did food delivery and stuff like that, where they were able to just kind of walk right on through. But it's interesting to think about it based around the concept of the culture of honor.
Yeah, and kind of a story behind that. It wasn't on purpose. We didn't make a mistake. It just kind of got out of hand. We talk about emotions. I think a lot of us engineers are really good at it. I'm pretty good at it. I'm mostly robot, so I don't get swayed by emotions. Usually I'm like, I just don't understand why you're talking to me like that. Did I say something? Because I don't know. Anyway, but so we had someone do a DoorDash drop off for some food at the place we were doing the physical on, and it happened just magically. It was totally by accident. Okay, so allegedly, I don't know, I'm just telling you what I was told, that when we brought in, because we were the dash or whatever, we went in this lady's office and set down food at her desk, which it was some tacos, by the way. It was delicious. We took bites of it, by the way, and put it back in the bag because it's just hilarious, right? Because she didn't order it. Like, we just dropped it off. It was supposed to be like a mistake order. Well, the problem was she wasn't even there. And we're like, oh, man, crap. Like, okay, they're like, her office is over there. We're like, okay. It's like, is she here? They're like, no, she's not here. We're like, because this was like the CFO. So we're trying to get all this in. Anyway, so we put the lunch there, and we put a soda there, and then we get asked to leave. And then we had another person come in the facility, and the security guard was kind of getting heightened, and there was a few kind of loud voices down the hallway. So what had happened behind the scenes, and it's just amazing how you can impact people's lives just by inserting yourself, like, plugging stuff in the wall. And she thought, so she wasn't in at work that day. Her coworkers called her and said, "Hey, there's like food on your desk. What is this?" And then she immediately went to a place of, "Oh my gosh, it's my ex-husband trying to harass me, and he's clearly out to get me. He's given me a sign. He knows where my office is." So the whole facility's like starting to lose it, and the security guard's like, "Hey, we're gonna be buckling down for all this," and we didn't notice the whole time. The reason why we were able to walk past security like 2 times is because they weren't looking for us; they were looking for the ex the whole time. And again, it was totally unintentional, but it was amazing to see the whole facility almost go into panic mode. I don't know what happened. I don't know anything about that. We don't care. I mean, whatever, everyone's safe, but like, it was insane, and we were able to just blind the security guard. I wish it was by design, but it wasn't. And all those emotions cause people to do stuff they wouldn't normally do. Like the guard, that guy was hard stop. You're not getting anywhere. He would dead stop you every time. And once that happened, he wasn't looking for anyone else but one person, and he was blinded to other threats.
That is so interesting.
I don't know if you heard that story.
I don't think I did.
It was a few years ago. Yeah.
Huh.
Crazy.
Yeah. It's crazy to think that like you just had that kind of like a lucky scenario
Yeah.
where like it kind of worked. You were able to get back there, assume with the food, and then it just compounded on top of it.
Yeah, and what's always funny, I don't know if it's just like sometimes we get it kind of more than often. They're like, "Man, you guys are lucky we were doing this that day." And I'm like, "Man, we didn't like pick the day. We just showed up. We had 5 days, and we just chose said day and did said day. We had a big financial bankruptcy rotation, something, and we were able to. I told the team, I was like, "Hey, go upstairs, see if you can open the door." Like, oh, man, they're locked. I was like, "Are they locked?" They're like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Did you try to open the door?" They're like, "No." So they went back upstairs, and even though, so just so you guys know, if there's a little red light on the badge thing, that means it's locked. Absolutely not. I'm joking. Just try to open the door. That has nothing to do with locking mechanism. It is the release. It doesn't mean it's not unlocked. And they were, quote, you're lucky we were doing, working on that this weekend. You guys just got lucky. I was like, maybe. But again, you said do it this month, and we just picked the magical day, I guess. So it's interesting. Just always, anyway, doing different approaches and see how people react. They were a little emotional about that, and I say because they were mad. But once they realized they should have a plan B for that, they came back to the table and they're like, you know what, that's a good point, because that could have been physical harm for employees. And even though it's social engineering, like evil hacker guys coming in, we also try to lean into the physical protection of employees.
So we've talked a lot about social engineering in like the physical sense, like trying to get access to a building physically. Let's talk a little bit about like more of the phishing side of things. Does the culture of honor still apply when you're trying to phish folks and kind of get their creds and get access to whatever account you're trying to get access to?
Great question. I haven't thought as much about that, but thinking back on some of the engagements, I think part of it is thinking about designing a lure and who's going to fall for it. So what's being offered, what's the potential harm, what's the potential threat. I think part of the reason it's different is there's just a distance there. So, for example, an aggressive email isn't going to get you anywhere, right? Partly because, well, that's just being a jerk. But that's also, right, that actually is a threat to my reputation. You were a jerk to me. Yeah. So, in that sense, one of the things that might happen is I might respond more forcefully in email than I would in person, because you're not going to get violent with me because you're somewhere far away. And so I haven't had this experience, but one of our engineers was telling me that he's had the experience when he's done vishing, that if you get a guy and he figures out you're not who you say you are, he's just going to hang up. If you get a woman and she figures out that you're not who you say you are, he said, I have been dressed down so badly that like I wanted to cry.
No way. Because, right, to both, it's an affront to my reputation. But if I'm a guy, I'm just like, you're being a jerk. I'm going to prove that you're a jerk by hanging up on you. You're a woman. There's no threat to violence. So now I can really let you know, like, I'm going to show you that you came after my reputation by going after you and going after your character, because how dare you do that? And so I think that does create some different dynamics in terms of, with vishing, especially, it's still personal, but it's distant. And so some of those dynamics can work themselves out differently. I think phishing is removed enough that some of those dynamics just aren't at play, because there's not that immediate interaction. There's not even a voice. So there's not a vocal interaction. So I can email you back really angrily, but does that do a lot? It does explain a lot why you get really vicious emails and vicious interactions even on like social media, because it feels safe. I can be really mean to you on social media. I would never do that to your face. Why? Because the whole code is different, right? I might be really mean to somebody who's way bigger than me on social media. I would never do that face to face. Why? On social media, they might be mean back. Yeah. In person, they're probably not going to take that so well.
Yeah, one of my favorite meme pictures from the internet, this guy was talking to someone at the UFC. He's like, man, you suck, dude. You're like the worst fighter I've ever seen, man. You're absolute trash. And dude goes, the UFC replied back, I said, I want you to come to this gym this time and come say that S to my face. And he said, absolutely not. He said, why not, punk? He's like, because you'll beat me up. So he was like, he was just like, fair. And he was like, fair. And that was it. It was the end of that.
That was the exchange.
That was the exchange. It was a great exchange. So, yeah, the internet.
Yeah. No, and I mean, it makes sense, because like phishing, it's just email, right? Vishing, it's at least a phone call. So it's human interaction, but I'm talking to you, you're talking to me, in a sense that like there's still, distance between us. We can't verbally reach out and fist fight you, but you can still chew people out.
Yeah, and I would even say, just speaking of phishing on that note specifically, is one of the, you talk about the lure that has been really successful for me is curiosity. I feel like that's always a big one. One of my big killer ones is the best is I will fake an email, spoof an email from the CEO and the CFO or something C-level. And then I would always title it like, December, whatever, 2022 bonuses and salary raises, right? And then I attached an Excel spreadsheet with some type of lure in it, and I just BCC everyone in the whole company. And so they're like, I probably shouldn't read that, but this is my inbox. So, and I think that was like 89%. And I think the other people, they just weren't there, but it was great.
It's fantastic.
So the curiosity is a really, really good one.
Yeah, and I think I actually saw the stats on that one because I was looking back through some of our engagements, and yeah, it was the new salary schedule. So it was gonna impact everyone. It was everybody in the company. Here's what your salary is gonna be. Here's what everyone else's salary is gonna be, which of course you would not send out.
Yeah.
But man, the number of people who are like, I've got to know where I am and where everyone else is.
The
was
drama.
Yeah. And speaking of, I don't know, choosing violence, because this one company almost decided to choose violence over the phishing one we did for. I mean, it was great. They were a really successful company. I think they had it down to like, man, it was like, I want to say 8 to 12%. They were monsters. Like so proud of this company. So I was like, man, they're just getting really good. I got to be pretty creative. And I was like, ooh, I got this one. Okay. No one really cares about protecting the company. I don't care what you think. It doesn't matter. We talked about it on a few other podcasts about make it the individual and make it about them, right? So what I did, we sent an email that was basically, it was called Vacation Days. We made a public announcement that we were going to be taking away up to 10 days of vacation off next year's rotation of salary. And it was like, if your name's listed, your days will be taken off. So expect 10 days docked from your salary next year for vacation. Oh man, everyone clicked that.
Oh my God.
Everyone, they were upset. They decided. We got a call probably, I'm gonna say like maybe 2 hours later. The IT manager, he was almost in tears, laughing so hard. He's like, we have to stop that because we didn't do it all at the same time, so we had it like rolling. We don't want to like look super suspicious, just DDoSing everybody with it because it's not an internal email, it's an external, right? And he made us stop the rolling engagement because people were blowing HR and like was getting so angry. And HR's like, what are you talking about? Like, I got this email from you guys. This came because it came from HR. Mm-hmm. Oh man, it was awesome. So, we caused chaos. That makes sense. But yeah, so going back to that, getting people emotional and have them do things they wouldn't typically do. Like, I don't know, take away someone's vacation. You'll see, you'll get a real side of somebody.
We had one that we did. It was benefits enrollment was coming out, and it was going to be a major change. And what was fun was not just seeing the number, but seeing, in that case, they had to go and enter their Microsoft credentials or something. And one guy had tried to enter them 19 times. So not only he clicked on the link, he had kept clicking on it like, I am so desperate. So I'm like, I don't know how many different possible credentials you gave, but it was a lot.
Nice.
Wow. He was like, okay, this must be the wrong password. Let me try this other password and then this other password and, maybe about this other one, right?
I bet it was like Larry 1, then Larry 2, then Larry 3.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just guessing.
Exclamation point.
Yeah, exclamation.
21.
2021. What year was he born? When did he graduate? Stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's great.
No, this has been fantastic. Was there anything else about this topic and social engineering and culture of honor and kind of how the two relate that we didn't ask you about that you wanted to talk about today?
I would just say the one thing, so we sort of talked from the attacker side. From the defender side is, one, make your people aware of this. Like the emotional discomfort. You're going to feel uncomfortable. But your job is to keep people from getting in. So when you see, the person with the baby carrier, if they're not supposed to, just prepare them that you're going to feel that discomfort and own that and say, but here's the thing, that doesn't keep you from doing your job. Your job is because part of it is if you can help them realize it's not just their reputation, it's the reputation of the company, then they can still see that as, hey, my reputation in this case is the company's reputation and we can't let people in. That actually hurts our reputation to allow people to wander the office. And so I think the more that you can train people and familiarize them with, a lot of the awareness training is you're looking for the suspicious person. Okay, great. Yes, please, you need to do that. Teach them to look for the person who doesn't look suspicious and still say, you have to stop that person. And it is just going to feel weird. I mean, I would feel weird if somebody with a baby carrier was waiting outside of our offices and I had to say, no, you can't go in, especially if they're like, I need to go to the bathroom. Okay, that's going to feel really bad for me, but saying, okay, you still can't come in, and just own that and help train them to be aware of that.
Yeah, and I would like to even add to that is we had a lot of companies that said, I just feel weird about doing that. And I don't know. I said, that's totally normal. I said, you need to just kill them with kindness and say, hey, that sounds great. I understand. Hey, I'm going to escort you back to the front in the lobby. Please have a seat. I can get you some water or something. Just stay right here and I'll have someone help you. You can politely escort somebody. Even that can be weird, but it's better than be like, what are you doing here? What's your name? Be like, hey, hi, I'm Donovan. We're not supposed to have people wandering the halls. I'm so sorry. Can I escort you back to the front? Because that's different. And again, it's that making the violent aspects and really dial it down. And from a defender side, using the same techniques that we use, and it really kind of isolates the situation. We've had a few people give us the polite walk back a few times. So, but again, it's good because they were doing the policy and they said, I don't know. I was like, why'd you stop me? Like did I do something? Was my eye twitching too much that day? Because, we get nervous. But she was like, no, you just didn't fit in for some reason. Like, I just knew you weren't supposed to be here. I was like, cool, good. Exactly. Because you can tell when someone's not supposed to be there. Even if they just look totally normal, there's something different. And go with your gut. And those are probably the people that shouldn't be there, and just politely just escort them back to the front.
Politeness with politeness.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's awesome. And I think too, I'm sure it's uncomfortable to be in those situations as kind of like that defender side where you do have to be super polite and keep an eye out. And I'm sure it's also critical for like management to let you know that, hey, we have your back. This is your responsibility. This is all of our responsibilities. We're trying to keep this a safe, secure environment. If you see something that might be a little bit off, maybe someone's super polite, but they just don't quite fit in.
Yep.
You have the capabilities to stop them and be like, hey, I just wanted to make sure that you were allowed to be back here.
For sure.
Awesome. Well, that's all I had. I think it's been a fantastic episode. Todd, thank you so much for joining us. Donovan, thanks for co-hosting.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Teddy.
All right. Like our show? Listen to full episodes on Spotify, Apple, or anywhere else where you get your podcasts. And if you're interested in watching the video, you can find that on our YouTube or on secureafpodcast.com.